My sister Becky was kicked out by her husband for cheating. Our parents convinced me to let her stay with us, but she started flirting with my husband. I'm 25 and I have a twin sister named Becky. We were close as kids, but something went wrong in our teenage years. Becky was an exceptionally gifted student, while I was pretty average. In 8th grade, she was offered a scholarship to a prestigious school for gifted kids, and she wanted to accept. The only issue was that the school was far outside the city, and the commute would take over an hour each day. Our parents suggested she live on campus, but Becky refused, saying she didn't like the idea of living at school. After much thought, our parents decided she could live with our aunt, our dad's sister, who didn't have kids of her own and had never been married. Dad wasn't sure if she could handle the responsibility, but our aunt offered to take Becky in so she could attend the school she wanted. So Becky moved in with our aunt during high school while I stayed with our parents. She came home for holidays and we visited her when we could. For the first couple of months, everything was fine. Becky said she enjoyed school and hanging out with new friends. I was genuinely happy for her and wanted her to succeed. I never envied her. I just wanted everyone to be happy, and I still do. At first, when she talked about school and her new friends, I was thrilled for her, and she wasn't showing off. She was just sharing her life. But over time, things changed. It started to feel like she was deliberately rubbing it in my face, making me feel worthless. For a long time, I thought I was overreacting, but then other negative changes in her behavior started showing up, which even our parents noticed. I began to think I might have underestimated what was happening, and something was genuinely wrong with Becky. It wasn't immediately obvious, and it took a while for my parents and me to realize that Becky was becoming a different person in a bad way. It started with small things. When we visited her, she talked less about her life and was constantly in a bad mood. We didn't think much of it, assuming she was just tired from school and needed space. Our aunt said the same, and we accepted that explanation, but as time went on, Becky started snapping at us for no reason. She was always irritable and angry. Her teachers reported that her grades had plummeted, and she was difficult to manage in class. This happened in her 3rd year at the school, and that's when our parents got seriously worried. They had been discussing bringing her back home for a while, but Becky refused. She wanted to stay with people like her and felt she'd never fit in at my school. Honestly, it hurt to hear that. The final straw came when our aunt called us in the middle of the night, saying Becky had stolen a bunch of cash and run away. The police got involved and found her within half an hour. She was trying to buy alcohol, despite being underage. The cops let her off with a warning, but our parents had had enough and decided to bring her home. Becky was furious and caused a huge scene, but our parents stood their ground and made her return to our old school. They also insisted she see a therapist because it was clear something had happened while she was living with our aunt. At first, we thought she couldn't handle the competition at the new school and had cracked under pressure. When she came back, she was incredibly difficult, refusing to cooperate with parents, teachers, or classmates, skipping school, and becoming the complete opposite of who she used to be. The change was slow but drastic. Our parents decided therapy was the best way to figure out what had happened to her while she was with our aunt. We thought it might be bullying or school pressure, but it turned out the problem was our aunt. Apparently, she was an overbearing, controlling figure. In therapy, Becky opened up and revealed that our aunt was despotic and overly controlling. She'd act normal when we were around, but as soon as we left, she'd revert to controlling every aspect of Becky's life. According to Becky, she was forced to study every second she was at home, as anything else was considered a waste of time. She wasn't allowed to hang out with friends or do anything but study. Even during meals, our aunt would play educational content instead of letting her watch something fun. This crushed her, and she started acting out in other ways. But she didn't want to come back home because it would mean giving up a big opportunity. She thought our school wasn't good enough for her abilities. Our aunt had told her that our grandparents never acknowledged her talents or intelligence, even though she was a gifted child herself. Because they didn't treat her as special, she ended up with a boring job that didn't pay well. She claimed she could have achieved so much more if her parents had invested in her and recognized her potential. She instilled a fear of failure in Becky, making her anxious and terrified of failing if she left the prestigious school. So she tried to stick it out, but the pressure became too much. She started sneaking out to parties to blow off steam, and that's when she got caught. That's how she ended up back with us. She said she regretted everything because she'd missed a golden opportunity to become someone worthy and was now convinced she was destined to fail. She gave up entirely. It became clear how much damage our aunt had done. But the worst part was that a couple of years later, when her behavior barely improved, Becky was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. It wasn't a huge surprise, but it was devastating to realize our aunt had pushed her to such a serious condition that she'd carry for life. Our parents were shocked and blamed themselves for letting her live with our aunt. I didn't think it was entirely their fault. They noticed the red flags and tried to bring her home, but Becky refused. Plus, our aunt was good at pretending everything was fine when we were around, so we wouldn't have known the truth if Becky hadn't spoken up. Our parents even sued our aunt for the harm caused and won, using the settlement to pay for Becky's intensive therapy, which she needed for years. She barely graduated high school and couldn't go to college because her condition was too unstable, and our parents didn't want to risk sending her away again. She also refused to attend a local college, so she stayed with our parents. That is, until a couple of years ago when she started dating a guy named Toby, who moved into the house next door after our old neighbors sold it. Toby knew Becky's history because our parents felt it necessary to tell him when they noticed her trying to talk to him more often. He was a genuinely kind and empathetic person who seemed to truly like her, even knowing her diagnosis. He assured our parents he wanted to be with her despite everything they told him. Our parents weren't thrilled at first, but Becky convinced them to let her move in with Toby after a few months of dating. Since he lived next door, they could check on her easily. Eventually, they agreed because it was getting harder to justify keeping an adult woman under constant supervision. Becky moved in with Toby, and our parents kept an eye on her to make sure she didn't mess up her life or relationship. Around the same time, they found her a job as a secretary at a friend's startup, something simple to start with so she could grow over time. Things were going great for her. After almost a year of living together, she and Toby decided to get married. Since they were already living together, our parents gave their blessing, thinking it would be good for her. She even quit her job to become a housewife, and honestly, life with Toby seemed to do her good. She started treating us all better instead of acting like we were her enemies or holding her back. Our parents thought it was a good idea. So, 2 years ago, Becky and Toby got married. I got married last year to my boyfriend of almost 7 years whom I met in college. My husband Jack knew about Becky from the first time I brought him to meet my family when she shamelessly flirted with him. I told him about her diagnosis and warned him she might act strangely, but I didn't expect her to openly flirt with him right in front of me. It was wildly inappropriate, and I had to ask her to stop multiple times until my mom snapped and told her to go to her room. It got awkward, and we had to explain to Jack that she's just like that. You never know what she'll do. She has no filter and often says things to provoke a reaction. Her flirting with my boyfriend was definitely meant to get a rise out of me. That was their first interaction. And after that, Jack just ignored her. She got bored when she realized he wasn't reciprocating and started ignoring him too. They never really got along, and I didn't think they needed to. I left it alone. Becky was invited to my wedding, just as I was invited to hers, because our parents wanted us to at least pretend we were a close family, even if we weren't. Becky seemed head over heels for Toby, and when they were together, she genuinely became kinder to everyone. I thought maybe it was time to try being a family again. We started having monthly family dinners to rebuild our relationship, and it was actually working. Over the past couple of years, we made real progress. I'd even say we were almost a happy family, yes, but it was too good to be true. Recently, we found out Becky had been cheating on Toby for about a year. Not with just anyone, but with his colleague. We were all shocked because we thought she and Toby were crazy about each other. It was a huge blow to the family. Toby found out by accident when Becky left her phone unlocked and stepped out of the room, and her lover texted her. It seemed like she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She just got careless after getting away with it for so long. We couldn't convince Toby to forgive her, and I don't blame him. Who would after that? After a long divorce process, they sold all their assets, including the house, and split the money. After the divorce, Becky moved back in with our parents temporarily, but they kept asking me to take her in. She complained that living with them made her feel like a failure, especially after her failed marriage. She could have rented an apartment, but our parents were against it, worried she might harm herself or do something reckless if left alone. They begged me to let her stay with us so she could start over. Eventually, I gave in because I felt sorry for her. Every time I visited my parents' house, she wandered around like a shadow of herself. It was pitiful. I think anyone in my position would have caved. She's my sister, and I felt some obligation to help. Or so I thought until I let her move in. She stabbed me in the back. My husband and I discussed it and decided we could handle it if it would help her regain her confidence and fix her life. But she managed to ruin everything in less than a week. She was thrilled to move in with us, and I realized our parents were right. She really wanted to live with me, not them. It was a bit strange since we'd grown distant after she moved to our aunt's, but it felt nice to see her reaching out to me again. I even thought we might rebuild our relationship. I was wrong. I shouldn't have let her in at all. I only did it for our parents because we all knew she was drowning in her problems, and I wanted to help fix things for the family. Maybe it's a savior complex, but I just wanted to be helpful. The day she moved in went well. We put her in the guest room and she settled in quickly. She was lively and cheerful. The first time I'd seen her that happy since the divorce. I was glad I could help. But things changed the next day. She started nitpicking everything, how I decorated the house, the paint on the walls. It was so petty that I didn't engage to avoid conflict. The final straw was dinner. She started openly flirting with my husband, making eyes at him, asking weird questions, touching his hand unnecessarily. I was stunned, and he was visibly uncomfortable, as was I. We left the table without finishing dinner and went to our room. We decided she couldn't stay. I wasn't going to let her live under our roof and flirt with my husband. That wasn't happening. She'd have to go back to our parents. If it hurt her mental state, that wasn't my problem. I'm not her mother. I wanted to do something good for the family by taking her in, but clearly some people can't be saved. They're never grateful. I should have known better, but my human side pitied her and wanted her to get better because she's my sister. After dinner, I called my parents and told them what happened. I expected them to be as outraged as I was and demand she come back. A third return to their house would have crushed her, sending her back into a spiral of depression, but they felt sorry for her and told me I could either deal with it or give her our house and move out. I didn't even understand what they meant by give her the house. That's not how it works. You can't just give someone what isn't theirs, whether it's a husband or a house. I told them it was absurd and that they needed to take her back, but they said I was overreacting and that nothing serious had happened. If I trusted my husband, I had nothing to fear. They said Becky was in a bad place and I should just ignore her behavior and let her stay because she's family and I owe them. That's when I lost it. I told them I don't owe them anything. She's their daughter, not mine, and it's their responsibility to deal with her. I used to think I had some obligation to them, which is why I took her in, but after this backfired, I was done. We argued and they gave me two options: find a new house or put up with her since I'd already let her in. They weren't going to make her move again just because I was insecure. Then they hung up without letting me respond. My husband and I were furious. It was unbelievably bold, and I couldn't believe they thought this would go their way. We went back to the living room where Becky was and told her that her behavior was unacceptable, and we weren't comfortable with her living with us. She had a meltdown, screaming at me, accusing me of always being jealous of her. She said the only reason she wanted to move in was to be closer to my husband, not me. She claimed she'd noticed how he looked at her during visits, both during her marriage and after the divorce, and knew he wanted her, but I was always in the way. So she moved in to make it easier for him to confess his feelings. We were dumbfounded. It was so delusional it didn't compute. Within seconds, my husband told her to get out and never come back. She seemed genuinely shocked, clearly not expecting that reaction. She tried to act offended, saying she knew what she saw and that he was just covering his tracks to avoid ruining things with me. I lost it and screamed at her to leave. She screamed back, saying she was leaving anyway because living with us was boring and we were just a bunch of losers. She packed her things and left. We didn't know where she went, and after that we just wanted a quiet evening, so we went to bed. But our parents couldn't find her. She wasn't answering calls and didn't go back to their place, so we had no idea where she was. In short, my parents blame me for everything, saying my husband and I escalated the situation. I think that's incredibly unfair. Honestly, I feel a bit guilty because if we'd been kinder, maybe this wouldn't have happened. So, am I wrong for kicking my narcissistic sister out of my house? I personally think the author is 100% in the right. Letting her sister stay with them was already a huge gesture, and there's nothing more to discuss. Update 1. A few days have passed since my post, and I just wanted to let you know we found her. Becky was staying with a friend outside the city, which is why we couldn't track her down. She's fine, but as delusional and crazy as ever. When our parents found her, she refused to come home, saying she's too good to live with her family and wants her own place. She said she's tired of depending on people. First Toby, then our parents, and now wants her own home. And guess what? Our parents agreed. Of course, no one has apologized to me or my husband. They just texted me the news and said I should be grateful she's okay. They're planning to buy her an apartment soon so she can start saving and have a fresh start. I don't know why they thought I needed to know this, but I'm glad they did. It's clear where I stand in their priorities. My happiness obviously doesn't matter to them. Now I know for sure. Update 2, it happened. They actually bought her a new apartment. This time, they didn't even bother telling me directly. I found out from mutual friends because Becky wouldn't stop posting about it on social media. After we kicked her out, she blocked us everywhere, probably out of shame for that insane scene. I don't care. Friends say they don't even know what she's up to now and she's not worth my attention. I tried to be kind to her and got burned. I'm done. I don't want anything to do with her. She's not worth my time or energy. My parents and I still aren't talking, and they probably still think I'm to blame for her disappearing for a couple of days, even though nothing happened to her and she got everything she wanted. Honestly, she should be thanking me for kicking her out since it led to her getting a new apartment. Anyway, my husband and I are doing great, and he's my only family now. Update 3. It's been a month since Becky moved in, flirted with my husband, and was immediately kicked out of my house. As you know, our parents then bought her a new apartment with their money so she could start saving. The crazy thing is, even after all this time, neither Becky nor our parents have changed. I've stopped hoping they ever will. Some people are just too selfish to care about anyone but themselves. Becky is truly a narcissist. She probably needs therapy, but I'm not going to tell her that because she's no longer my family. My husband and I are doing well. We're holding on to each other and happy. That's all that matters to me. My parents and Becky can go to hell.